Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole on Tuesday, 28th of April, 9 a.m. in Council Chambers. And first off, we need the approval of the agenda, and I do not think there are any late items. No, thank you. Could we have that, please? Thank you. Councillor King, Councillor Poderica, all in favor? Thank you. And the adoption of some minutes, the Committee of the Whole minutes from April the 14th. Could we have a motion, please, to adopt those? Councillor Bennett, Councillor Chong, all in favor. Thank you. And first off, today we have a delegation, the South Okanagan Regional Growth Strategy Review. And it's going to be presented by Ben Kent, who is a planner for the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen. Welcome, Ben. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you for taking the time to hear from me today. The reason for my visit, as stated, is to provide an update to Council on the ongoing review of the Regional District's South Okanagan Regional Growth Strategy. And just because I know that this strategy is presented relatively infrequently to our municipal partners, I've included a little bit of a background on it, not too much detail, but just a quick overview of what this plan is and what it does. So the regional growth strategy was originally drafted between 2004 and 2010. And the participants in this strategy include the municipalities of Penticton, Summerland, Oliver, and Osoyoos, as well as the regional district rural electoral areas in the Okanagan Valley. And the legislative purpose of any regional growth strategy is to promote human settlement that's socially, economically, and environmentally healthy, and to make efficient use of public facilities, services, land, and other resources. And the way that this particular regional growth strategy goes about that is through 7 different policy areas that the member municipalities as well as the regional district have agreed to. I'm not going to read through each one of these, but you can see them on the screen there. And because the regional growth strategy is a shared land use framework, when it was adopted, it required formal acceptance by each of the participants. That would include all of the member municipalities. And likewise, any major amendment to the strategy after that adoption has to go through the same process. So prior to adoption of this amendment, it will require acceptance by each of the member municipalities. So that's one of the main reasons for my visit today, is just to make Council aware of this forthcoming statutory requirement to consider the amendments for acceptance before the regional district can adopt them. And so the way that the regional district is involving the town in this process is we have provided a notice, a formal notice of the amendment being initiated back in March. We sent out a referral package alongside that with a request for any referral comments. And then today's presentation is simply to apprise Council of the current status of this project. So just moving on to the history of this amendment and the RGS review, this project did begin in 2020, and there was a previous quite substantial round of public consultation that was completed back in 2022 in support of that. I believe around that time we would have given a similar presentation to this one to Council. And I believe we walked through some of the land use classifications that I'll get to later in my presentation at that time. Following that phase of engagement, the RDOS board did choose to further augment the scope of the project, and this was primarily in response to community feedback that was received, primarily in relation to the communities of Naramata and Cleedon, which I'll get to in the next few slides. Following that, there was a delay to the project, and this was primarily so that the regional district could prioritize other land use projects, particularly associated with new provincial housing legislation. So as I mentioned, the new scope of the project, or the tack on to the previous set of amendments, is primarily in response to community feedback received from the communities of Naramata and Cleedon, and in particularly the inclusion of these areas of any sort of growth area and community concerns in relation to additional growth in those communities. Due to the time that's lapsed since that previous round of consultation, the regional district does feel that additional consultation is required at this time in support of the new additional amendment. And so in addition to that new addition, the previous amendments included as part of that 2022 package are still included here today. So that the full scope of the project includes generally five different areas. And those are new climate change policies, updated census data, a new growth management map, new language respecting the concept of urban containment boundaries, and updates to the village settlement area policies. So just walking through each of these one by one, the updates to the climate change mitigation and adaptation section of the strategy. Essentially, what this is being proposed for is to reflect new provincial direction under the Climate Change Accountability Act. Essentially, it's these three emission reduction targets and the associated dates. Similarly, the updates to the population and demographics section of the plan are simply to update growth projections and graphs and other figures in that section of the plan to reflect the most recent census data being from 2021. The most substantial change with these amendments is the change to the growth management map. So what this is doing is it's transitioning from the growth area map that's shown on the left-hand side there to a new map schedule that includes a series of different land use designations. And I think this was the basis of the previous presentation to council. I'm not going to walk through each of the land use designations today, but I'm just going to provide a very high level summary of why this is being proposed and what it's trying to achieve. So really what this is trying to address is difficulties and challenges that the regional district has had, particularly with its growth areas, and in particular, the rural growth areas that are designated under the strategy. So currently, the regional growth strategy lays out two different types of growth areas. So there's primary growth areas, which include all of the member municipalities, as well as Okanagan Falls. And then it also includes rural growth areas. And those are all those blue stars that you can see on the map there. So one of the challenges that the regional district has faced with this map over the years is that it simply includes place markers and it doesn't actually delineate the boundaries of these rural growth areas. And so when the regional district receives land use applications, such as an official community plan or a zoning bylaw amendment in our rural areas, it can be quite challenging for staff to determine whether a particular property is inside of or outside of a growth area and whether that land use change is supported by the plan. The other major challenge that we've seen is simply the lack of suitable infrastructure or services in the rural areas to support the level of growth that would be needed for these rural growth areas. And so the way that this current amendment is proposing to address this is essentially by removing the rural growth area designations from the plan. What this would involve is directing the majority of new growth to our urban centers. So that would be all of what are referred to as primary growth areas under the current plan, or all of our member municipalities in Okanagan Falls. The amendment would also set out a target for approximately 95% of future growth to be accommodated within those urban centers. Just by way of example, as of the most recent census year, I believe the current on the ground target was around 85, 86% of growth is currently being provided for in those urban areas. So it's not a significant departure above what's already occurring on the ground. The strategy would then support the full range of residential, commercial, institutional, and industrial land uses in these urban areas. And the reason for this is simply that the necessary infrastructure, servicing, and amenities are in place in these areas to support new development. Somewhat related to this, there's new language being added to the strategy addressing this concept of an urban containment boundary. And this concept was introduced by Bill 44, the small-scale multi-unit housing legislation passed by the province that I'm sure we're all familiar with at this point. And the way that this concept operated in that legislation is it's one of the criteria that's used by the province to determine the number of dwelling units that are required in what it refers to as a restricted zone, essentially all those existing low-density residential zones that were in place across BC prior to the legislation being introduced. And through a bit of a quirk in the legislation, it technically allows for an urban containment boundary to be designated either in a municipal OCP or in a regional growth strategy. Now, the regional district recognizes that that's not how our regional growth strategy has operated historically. It doesn't get so in the weeds with allocating where growth should occur within municipalities. It takes a more high-level landscape approach, just directing where growth should occur regionally, and it leaves those decisions on urban containment boundaries to the municipalities. And so to reflect this and to avoid any confusion over this concept, it's just adding language clarifying this historic practice and clarifying to the extent that an urban containment boundary might be introduced for the purpose of the legislation, it would be introduced in a municipal OCP. And the last change that's being proposed, as I alluded to earlier in the presentation, is changes to the village settlement area designation that's being proposed for Naramata, Cleedon, and Gallagher Lake. And the changes to this designation, as I stated, are to reflect community concerns in Naramata and Cleedon regarding additional growth in those communities. And so the way that this new change is accommodating that is by limiting new growth, essentially by limiting the creation of new infrastructure. To support that, it introduces policy language stating that the regional district may designate a service containment boundary in its rural official community plans. And while it would support the improvement of any existing infrastructure that's currently in place in these communities to maintain the small village character, it wouldn't support the creation of wholesale new services in these areas, such as a community sewer system. So that's it for the high-level scope of the proposed amendments. In terms of next steps, in April, I have already given presentations to the other member municipalities. Asias is the last up today. In May, we're looking forward to holding a series of public information meetings. And just so council is aware, we will be sending out notice of these meetings broadly throughout the region. So by chance, if you do get residents that are approaching you with questions about, what is this, what's going on, please just send them over to the regional district. I'm happy to take their questions. In June, I'll be holding similar presentations to the regional district's advisory planning commissions. And then July is our tentative target for consideration of first reading. And so that statutory requirement for the town to consider the bylaws for acceptance, that would occur depending on the outcome of that first reading meeting. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ben. Appreciate that. I know that this year is a new census year there. So my assumption is that information wouldn't be included in this report because it needs time. It would be included in the next one that's done. And I think it's every 5 years. That's the ideal.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
Thank you, Your Worship. So census data is typically released the year following it's collected. So I believe that would be around 2027, maybe
Sure.
early 2027.
No problem.
And then in terms of ongoing reviews of the regional growth strategy, the legislation requires that the regional district consider it for a possible amendment every 5 years. And so that most recently occurred in 2025. And while the next scheduled review would be in 2030 based on that schedule, there were a number of policy areas that were not included in this amendment, but were flagged as ongoing regional concerns, flagged by our technical advisory committee comprised of planning managers throughout the region. And so the regional board is already aware that there are a number of issues that might warrant consideration and has motioned when it considered that most recent 5-year review to consider those in 2027.
Good, thank you. Did you have go ahead, Councillor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Ben. Just a question, with regards to obviously the RGS, do you anticipate any changes or significant changes with the incorporation of Okanagan Falls at this stage as we go through the process? Is it something where you would we're going to follow the way as we are, and then at some point once the incorporation, potentially does take place, then there'd be a further review going down the road as to what that looks like?
Thank you, through the chair. And yes, likely there will be significant changes, although that is to be decided likely by the new council, mayor and council. At this point, the bylaws do consider Okanagan Falls in the same manner as the other municipalities, so there is already groundwork being laid for a smooth transition in that respect.
Thank you. Just for some clarity in terms of procedurally, where does the RGS sit in terms of, does it supersede OCPs? Like, does it act as a guiding document? Um, I'm just kind of wrapping my head around like the direct impacts of the outcomes from the RGS.
Thank you. Through the chair. Under the Local Government Act, any bylaw or works and services undertaken following the adoption of regional growth strategy is very similar to an official community plan. Those must be consistent with that strategy. In terms of the implications of these amendments, likely very little impacts for our member municipalities. Really, the focus of this at a high level is how the regional district makes decisions on land use applications considered in the rural areas. Of course, being that there's only so many locations that can accommodate growth, if those aren't occurring in the rural areas and they're being directed to the municipality, there might be a secondary effect of that in that way. But that is by and large very similar to how that framework is already set up in the plan. It likely won't have significant impacts for our member municipalities in that respect.
So if there is a situation where a municipality decides to, in their OCP, have a bylaw that may not be congruent with the RGS, which one would have like superseding power? Is there more like collaboration discussion in that case?
Thank you. Through the chair. So under the Local Government Act, the official community plan must be consistent with the RGS. So that there is a bit of a hierarchy there in that respect. When it comes to matters of disagreement on regional growth strategies, the legislation is fairly prescriptive about how those should be resolved. And so there are steps in the legislation that would direct disagreements on an RGS through an arbitration process.
So the RGS committee is made up of planners from all of the areas, so that would help to make sure that everybody knew what was being proposed or where there might be a problem. Is there anyone else that has any other questions about this? Okay, well, thank you very much, Ben. Appreciate your slideshow and I will certainly, or Jim or I will be at the RDOS meeting, so we will keep an update on this. Thank you so much. Next, we have staff reports, and so we have 5 of them today. So we will start with our community services quarterly report, and that would be Mr. Davis. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This morning, I'm going to mix this up a little bit. So today is kind of a report to get some direction on what council would like in a quarterly report. And I'm just going to briefly go through like I normally would and do some highlights of different areas. But what I would like is some feedback on items that, you know, are not quite necessary or things that you would want to change. I do know that Lauren is doing some work with some of our tables or will be doing some with ours. I don't think she's got any of mine yet because I didn't give them to her. And it'll be a little easier to read pie charts, etc. So yeah, I'll just go forward here. So there's a lot of verbiage here. We love the pictures. Just wanted to identify a couple of things. Just to let you know that 90% of our available ice was booked for this quarter. We're very busy. Figure Skating Club also hosted their year-end skate show. Pirates of the Caribbean, if nobody actually took it in, it was pretty good. And of course, the Osoyoos Coyotes had a change of ownership. This was done originally just to give an indication of where we are with our services and you know how it affects with some of the improvements that we're doing. So with the reverse osmosis system that we put in, we did see definitely a reduction and help some of that regional growth strategy you know priorities, which would move us along. If this is something that, council doesn't want to see on a quarterly report, it's fine. But it does give you a clear picture of what's there and how it's happening, especially for the quarter. This is directly from the Fortis website, and it's easily accessible. The Sun Bowl Arena, because we're a stats lovely contingent. Just wanted to point out here that our public skating continues to grow, and it's quite popular. Kudos to the Rotary Club for their support, and the rest of these are in terms of what they actually bring and how busy they are, especially for the Coyotes home games. Just a little extra. Again, a lot more verbiage. This is something I think we'll cut back on. It is good to know in terms of what's going on in terms of our programs, what's happening with special events, especially the amount of input that we have. The Family Literacy Fair was held on January 24th. The babysitters training class was quite popular. We normally have fewer kids than the 17 that were registered. And obviously the Slow Pitch League started March 30th. And again, just with the family day skate, we had 147 people attend, which was pretty popular. Stats, and more stats. We love it. So just to highlight a couple of things here, just our total body fit with almost 600 people for 25 classes was pretty good. Consistent throughout in similar years, although it's dropped a little bit. And the big one here is Groove It at the very bottom, 792 participants in 25 classes. And I can tell you our classes in the evenings and in the mornings are quite popular, more so than pickleball. Believe that or not. Again, I wanted to just highlight a couple of things here. This was done from the very beginning in terms of what we deal with. This is not all of our rental agreements, but is the ones that we deal with specifically, community services. And for us, it's a good reminder. And if we kind of forget or see where we are with each agreement, Marg or Amy gives me a kick in the pants. Again, community grants. So this was updated to reflect what we just accomplished, minus the second round, which will come this afternoon. And it just goes to show you the amount of stuff that's going on in the community and the amount of support that the town gives these organizations. And again, same thing, the Resort Municipality Initiative. Myself and our Director of Finance are working on our annual report. And there's a lot more stuff in there than I thought. But it is very necessary. And, for the amount of money that we get and how it helps with our community, it's fantastic. Again, this will be cut back a little bit. And what I would like to highlight, though, for the committees, and we will add another one to this for the childcare, is how many times we met during the quarter, what we went on. The biggest thing was the school district. We had a discussion about a potential joint use, which is still on the table. And obviously the harness racing at Desert Park, we had talked about a few times. Our accessibility and age-friendly committee, we never seem to miss any of those meetings, and we got a lot of stuff happening. The temporary dog park was a big hit. And also the dementia-friendly cafe, we had quite a few people that came and talked about that as well. And then just an update on capital projects. Most of these are updated, but obviously this is an ongoing item that would, go back and forth and in and out all day long. So it's very dynamic. That's it. But I would like to remind council that if there's anything on here that you would like to change, move, get off the table, maybe not just for me, but for everybody, would very much appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Davis. I certainly appreciate seeing all of this information, and I think the fact that it is available to the public as well is quite important because they can then see exactly what the money spent on, how much, what are the costs, and how much we're saving a little bit on the natural gas and on the electrical. I think those are really, to me, they're really important. I have a question though. The memorial bench program, so there were no benches installed. Can you explain that a little bit? Because I know I've had a few people phone me and ask, and I told them to phone you.
Oh, yes, Madam Mayor. So we normally do an intake. What we're trying to do is like do one major intake per year. And then working with operations, they will be installed during a time frame, like say, between now and June. We didn't do any during the first quarter because they don't normally get installed January to the end of March. But we still are looking at the memorial benches. I think we ordered 10 this year. And there were some put on hold because we were trying to figure out exactly, where we were going to have them for locations and stuff like that.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I know that some people have phoned me and said, my parents, we had a bench there for a long time and now all of a sudden it's not there. And I know that we're updating some of the benches and putting in more secure ones because a lot of them used to be wooden with, and were painted all the time. So is there, and I haven't looked, is on our website, is there sort of a new update on how they could do that, or whether they should phone back in the summer, or are they on a list? How does that work?
Yes, they do. So if anybody does call, we still take their information and we'll keep them updated. The information is on our website. And hopefully we will put a highlight on that just so people know. And I do know it's busy. I know we have a lot of, memorial benches out there. We did look at doing a memorial bench policy, but not just for benches, possibly for other stuff, but that's still in the works.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Mr. Davis? Okay, well, keep it up. I think that it looks good to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we now have a quarterly report from Corporate and Planning Development Services. This is
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to cut it this slightly differently than Director Davis did. So I'm going to highlight a couple of points out of the report, and then I'm going to sort of fast forward to some of the charts that I would like to suggest either changes or removal. I just want to say this is the first semi-annual report to council. The next report will be in October. So I'll start with highlights. A few things to notice about the corporate services report for the period of January through March. Animal control, parking, and unsightly premises continue to be the primary focus for our by law enforcement officers. And I want to highlight the online surveys that are providing staff with a lot of great feedback. And I want members of the public who are participating to be aware that we look at every one of those comments and we actually use those comments as we're improving and planning for new services. In the planning area, the number of business licenses issued in the first quarter is up from 2025, and the number of development permits are down for the quarter as compared to the last couple of years. I'm going to move on now to start walking through the report and highlight some of the areas where I would like some input from council. And I'm just going to pause on each of these and look around for a little thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if council doesn't feel like they want to make the decision right now, don't do anything and we'll just keep it in. So starting on page 4 of the report, which I believe is page 39 in your binders, it's the report of reception numbers by phone, email, and counter. Tracking the number of people who contact the municipal hall doesn't mean very much if you don't know why they were getting in touch with us. High numbers could indicate pleasant engagement. People might just be interested, or it could mean confusion or frustration because somebody's had to call back more than once. Those are the ones that I want to know about, and I would like to report going forward. Staff meet weekly to discuss the kinds of things that are coming in through all those channels and to proactively get information out to the public because we see a need for that information to be distributed in the community. But personally, I want to know if people are having to call us back more than once. Why is that happening? Where's the problem? And going forward, I would like to report these numbers to you, but also have a percentage of people who self-identify as they contacted. This is the second time I've called. This is the third time I've called. Not only do we want to know about them and put one of the directors on it to find out why they keep calling back and what's not being resolved, but I would like to add that to this chart going forward, so it's a little more meaningful as to what the numbers mean. Also on page 4, or is council okay with me adding that? Okay, thumbs up, thumbs up. Also on page 4, the number of freedom of information requests, I would say staff all across the organization are giving out information to people all day, every day. A few of them just happen to have personal information, so they become freedom of information requests. I don't know whether that's a particularly meaningful figure to count those up. It's kind of random, and my suggestion would be to remove this chart. If anybody's ever interested in that, we can provide it. It's information we track anyway, but I just don't think it's a very valuable chart. Down.
I'm a little concerned about that. I think it's important for us to know if there are a lot of people asking for reports, why? What is it that, are we missing something? Have we forgotten to, and I don't think we probably have, but maybe there isn't enough information being presented at meetings or on our surveys that we ask for. I think it's kind of interesting that 2024 had so many and less in 2025. So, you know, we probably can guess what it is, but I do think that we should be aiming for less of these because I know how much time it takes for our staff to deal with this. And I do remember in Summerland hearing this at a regional district meeting that there were so many people that had asked for freedom of information that one staff member, 80% of her job was just dealing with that. And I thought that is a huge cost to our municipality. And I think we need to look at that. So I'm okay with leaving it, but I let other people. Go ahead, Johnny.
I think a better metric would be staff hours dedicated to FOI requests as opposed to the number of FOIs. Because you're right, like it could be, you know, a member of the public who wants, asks for some information, but boom, there's some personal information that now becomes FOI, but wasn't intended to be FOI. So I think the quality of that information is more telling than just the quantity of requests.
That capture it, Your Worship? Yeah. Okay. All right. That's an easy change to make. Okay. Moving down to page 5 of the report, information like what's been reported on radon kits and actually any of the kind of topical information where it was some kind of an initiative and it's finished. My suggestion would be to report it one time and then not keep repeating it for the rest of the term. Good with that.
Take that off. I just have a question about the random kits. I participated in, but and I got a thing back for me, but I was interested in what it would show for the community. Because I mean, you had the problem here and I'm wondering how bad it is in the Soyuz, and they did, but there's never been any results except for one individual back to me.
Yes, so thank you, Councillor Bennett. Currently, we are awaiting the results as a whole. We have been advised that all the residents have received their reports, so we're just waiting for that. And when it does come back, then it will come to council with the information that was gathered.
I think we would probably try and get that on the website as well to share with the rest of the community, because I'm sure if you're interested, they're interested as well. Also on page 5, council meeting detail on the number of minutes and resolutions in each meeting. Council's aware they were in the meetings, and I don't feel that's a terribly effective metric, or perhaps there's a way of making it more effective. I don't know. My recommendation would be to remove it. And again, we can go back at any time and capture this if anybody's interested. Insurance claims. Also, this is something that's reported to camera separately in convened meetings, and I feel like it's something that council's already aware of, how many insurance claims we do. Yeah, okay. All right. Finally, page 8, building permits. I'm recommending that we remove the applicant's name. I feel like its personal names are not germane to the reporting. We will still have what it was that was being done. We'll have the property address. And I feel like that piece of information is a bit of undue invasion of people's privacy by putting their name out there. We're okay with that? Okay.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe if we can classify as a commercial, industrial, or residential or something like that,
Okay.
because then that gives a bit more context. But
Okay, all right.
I agree that the name, I was actually surprised the name's actually released to begin with.
Technically, it can be, but it doesn't always have to be. So I would recommend taking that out. There are two pieces of data that I would like to add going forward. Similarly to the public contacts, I would like to track a percentage of by law enforcement cases where we're aware that a compliance was not achieved, so that we may look at different approaches if that's necessary. So it's going to be just an extra bit of reporting there. How many, I think by and large, most of the cases, compliance is achieved right away. But if it's a repeat offender, I would like to capture that information. Yes, okay. And with respect to communications, I would like to add tables that track the uptake in each new communication channel that we have for Facebook, our new website, which will be coming online within the next few weeks, and the percentage of e-newses that are opened as opposed to just sent received. We want to personally, we would like to track that information and report it to show our communications hitting the mark. Do we need to make any adjustments there?
Kind of related. With the Facebook, is there ways to identify unique viewers and unique views as opposed to just the gross? And also location as to where these viewers are from?
I don't know, but I will find out. Yeah. And thank you, Your Worship. That's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. And we will now go on to financial services. Mrs. Keith, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. You'll see from this report, it's just the standard report that we have used, but we are very much looking forward to a standardized presentation with the other departments and switching out many of the tables to charts and just the different illustrations that I guess are more meaningful than what we currently have. Gabe, are you going to scroll for me? Okay. Thank you. So the first part is just going again through our kind of regular department sections, which we have accounts payables and accounts receivables. And these really are just a comparison of what we've done this quarter as compared to last quarter. As you'll note, there has been some changes. The accounts payable are pretty consistent. However, the dollar amount has gone down, as well as the number of invoices processed. And we can attribute that to, we just have implemented new procedures, new policies, a little bit more control. And we're finding that things have just been entered on a more timely basis and paid on a more timely basis. We were having a struggle, I think, last year with some late coming invoices, mainly due to the audit going on this time.
Just looking at your invoices processes, I mean, we're spending like, we're not processing 200 less, that's 25% less invoices, so are we still in business?
Yeah, it's just the timing of those invoices. Next quarter, we may have more. We're probably going to be processing the same. It's just more or less timing and how we're doing it. Accounts receivables, it's again quite consistent with what we showed in the prior year. We do have a little asterisk there on number outstanding being higher, and that's attributed to the one invoice that we had, an invoice to the RDOS for the Sun Bowl. Again, we had that similar type of expense last year. However, it was just processed in a different quarter. It was late coming to the RDOS where we issued it early and we got paid earlier. Moving on to the next section, we'll talk about cash receipting, cemetery, and payroll on this sheet. This is a question I have for council with regards to cash receipts. Cash receipting is really just how we process, how we, payments coming in at the front desk or through online. And I'm just not sure how valuable that information is. It's just a stat on the intake. It doesn't really contribute to how much more or less we're doing in a given quarter or year. So if everybody's okay, we can kind of next the cash receiving. Okay. Moving on to cemetery, it's just stats there. We have an asterisk on one of them there in 2026, which was identified below where we had a columbarium niche, which was sold back to the town. This is why it's negative. We didn't have anybody come back to life.
So do we give them the full amount back or a percentage?
We give them the full amount back in this case.
It was Easter. So.
Yes.
I have a question too. Sorry. Backing up, you got overdue 90 days, $7,000. Is there a rationale for that, or how do we collect that?
Those are just two invoices that are outstanding. One we are very certain will be collected. The other one has gone to collections, and it's both are in regard to the landfill.
What about 30, 60 days seems awful high.
That's again just a timing issue
Okay,
when the invoices were processed. Back to payroll. Payroll stats again are very consistent. The numbers reflecting they're showing an increase. Those aren't necessarily an increase in positions, but just a increase in vacancies being filled. And also the numbers, the increase there is consistent with the new QP agreement that was brought forward and mandatory increases we have through payroll. The last stat on the last page is really is property tax. Again, it's consistent. We are seeing that there are more accounts that are outstanding at this time of year than they were in past. I'm not sure if that's just a reflection of if just people are having a more difficult time paying. We have implemented the prepayment and the pre-authorized, which is we're seeing has increased quite a bit. But also, I think that also shows why some higher amounts are still outstanding, and that with the prepayments, we have a lot of residents that pay just a certain amount every week, every 2 weeks, every month. They don't pay the full amount, they just make a payment. So it shows it's working down on that outstanding amount, but it's leaving a larger amount showing as outstanding. We do have one error on here that I would like to point out and correct, and that was the number of folios on roll. In the paper copy in front of you, it shows 4,392. However, on the screen in front of you, it's actually 4,472. It has increased, not gone down.
Question. On your property delinquencies, 33, is that 1 year or 2 years? How do you split it?
The delinquencies are properties that are 3 years old that have
Oh,
not
3.
paid. Yeah,
Okay,
it's
thank you.
3. And if not paid by September of this year, they do go to the tax sale process. Utility billings are on the last page. Again, we have some oddities here, and this is mainly because this was our first year. 2025 was our first year in putting them on quarterly. So the stats are a little inconsistent, we'll say. But I feel in 2026, things are coming in line and becoming more systematic as we go through the process. There's not too much more to get. Many are still outstanding. Again, this is because of the payment process. We have pre-authorized payments where people are paying a certain amount every month towards their quarterly billing and not paying the whole amount, which is what occurred in 2025 when we first implemented quarterly billing.
And would it be important to note the number of account discrepancies?
That also an error. This number here on the paper copy, 4,168, was not inclusive of e-billing. Putting the e-billing in, we have 4,541, which is shown on screen. Apologize for those errors. So the last page is really just a financial summary, which is showing our account categories as presented in the 5-year plan. And it's basically a budget to actual variance. As you can see from the percentages, we're pretty much on track. Nothing is showing overly spent or underspent, as I was expected to be around between the 20 to 30%.
Could I ask about on the first one, the quarterly review, Q1, you have other revenue, and I'm just wondering if you could explain what that is. It's about the 5th one down.
Certainly. There's a number of categories that get brought into that. And that's a lot of times that's things such as return on investment, certain types of grant revenues that aren't included in the grants of the 8 million, which is only 558. We haven't had too much come through other revenue. I can give you a little bit more of a specific list because there are a number of them that go in there.
And it's just sort of a catch-all that doesn't fit in the other things?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's
Exactly.
okay. I just wondered what was included.
Yeah, bank investment income, donations received, sale of equipment, those kind of things
Okay.
would be included in that.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else have any concerns or
On that
questions?
page?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just
Yes.
one,
Yeah, sure.
one more
Go
page.
ahead.
What the last page is
Yep.
just specific to the Sun Bowl, which Director Davis has already talked about many of those stats. So this is just purely the numbers being brought forward.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that report. And I appreciate how you've done it. I think that it makes quite a lot of sense to have it this way. It's quite easier to understand. And now we will turn it over to Chief Cook for the serious fire rescue report.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'll start off with an apology, and that's with the inclusion of the comments down the side of the report. So aesthetically, it may not be that pleasing. However, each one of the comments that are inclusive are different points or areas where I do want to speak to with regards to changes or additions and such. So I'm using them for myself and for council as a benchmark as we go through the slide process. The very first well, first off, it's a pleasure to present the report to you today. And the first comment that I would like to make, or area that I would like to address, if you can go back one slide for me, please, is actually the inclusion of a snapshot, or call it an executive summary, if you will. Going through this report, for myself, this would be the first time in somewhat detail, if you will, since starting with the town. I note in here that we have a lot of good information contained within the report. My fear that when our public is going through the report, and if they're going through the documents as presented online, that a lot of that may be missed. And I'd like to extrapolate that from the report, include it into a snapshot or an executive summary on the second page of the report, so that that information is pulled forward and everyone can digest it and enjoy the success of the department, really. So that is the first addition or recommendation that I'd like to discuss or bring forward to council. Next slide, please. No time do we want to change reporting to council and the public exactly what it is that the fire service does for the community. What's very interesting is the types of calls and complaints, of course, that or incidents, sorry, that we do respond to. And of note, we did respond to a total of 31 calls in the first quarter of the year, and that is a decrease of 35% down from the same quarter in 2025. The notable or the areas to note that may have been large contributing factors to the decline, of course, are responses to motor vehicle accidents throughout the winter months and responses to carbon monoxide events. Typically in the winter months, carbon monoxide becomes a problem because people are firing up the furnaces, so forth and so on. And it does set off a lot of stuff into the atmosphere of a home, which triggers the monoxide alarms. On average, I'm very pleased to state that, or say that our average response time in Q1 was 8.75 minutes. That's within the community and the surrounding area of the RDOS for which we're contracted to serve. Our target time is 10 minutes. So very pleased on providing that stat or that number to council. Can we go to the next slide, please? Perfect. Thank you.
Could I just ask a question on the page you just had?
Okay.
It has false alarm and then it's got false alarm, good intent. Can you explain what that means?
I will do my best, and in layman terms, false alarm activation would be an accidental activation of alarm due to, I'll call it technology. So the system itself goes into fault, being it whether it's aged out or something electronic has gone wrong. Where false alarm, good intent would be a situation where somebody comes home after school, young school student, they're cooking, they warm something up a little bit too much, make too much smoke in mom and dad's house, and it triggers the alarm and they don't cancel the alarm in time. So it's nothing, malicious or anything along those lines. It's just an accident is what it is. So.
But you do go to each of those or respond in some way to each of those alarms?
Excellent.
Or is it you or is it an alarm company that does it? And do you get notified?
Excellent question. So typically what will happen during alarm activation, it's an automated service. I shouldn't say that. Depending on the alarm company, there is a procedure that is to be followed should a monitoring company receive a notification for an alarm to be activated at 123 Anywhere Street. There then, for some, are a process that the alarm company may phone the home. If there's no answer, they push that call to dispatch, or there's other cases, depending on the occupancy type, that the call just automatically goes to dispatch. Dispatch will receive that information, push it through to the fire department of the area where the alarm is being received. Now, in that time, and typically there's a few minute delay, the homeowner may realize, oh, it's a false alarm, pick up the phone their alarm company, and then they kind of reroute a message back to us to say, hey, don't come, it's an alarm. Our duty officer, regardless of type of occupancy, time of day, or even the fact that someone's called says false alarm, typically we keep going just to verify that indeed it is a false alarm. And it's a good public service call that we can make, because if it's a faulty smoke detector, we typically carry spares with us to replace it. So
Thank you.
you bet.
Go ahead, Councillor Chong.
So the average response time was 8.75.
75 minutes, yes.
In the document it says 11.5.
11.5 average response time minutes. That one.
Rural. Gotcha.
Correct. Yeah. And we did omit, I will share, we did omit the response times when we provide mutual aid assistance to Oliver as an example, because that's well over and above our contract. And so we do omit that number. So. In Q1, just picking back up on that page, perfect. We did provide mutual aid response to the town of Oliver for a grass fire in the near the tail end of the first quarter. In total, 189 staff hours were spent responding to incidents in the first quarter, which is a decrease of 58.3% from the same timeline the year prior. I will note, though, since the start of April, our calls have increased significantly. So expect different numbers next report. With regards to stats and data and graphs, I believe it's very important to dive into the data of the fire department, because data tells a lot of stories for us. And what I've done is I've actually included one chart here, which I found very, very interesting for myself being new to the community, which really shows us the peaks and valleys of the fire department. So with respect to the report, I do want to see us add more stats and graphs for council. If there's anything specifically with regards to calls that council would like to see, I would love to hear that and include it. However, the one chart, and I'd like to draw your attention to it at the bottom of the page. You'll notice we're on a 6-year cycle. And this was something that just kind of popped out when I created the chart and saw it with my team. And this is very interesting, because we're currently in year 5 of that cycle right now. So it seems that every 6 years we peak or spike in our call volumes within the community and surrounding areas. I also, funny enough, was speaking to another one of our members who is a sommelier, a wine guru, who's teaching me a lot about wine. And she pointed out that those are vintage years. in the South Okanagan for wine. So obviously the climate and what's going on in those years is not only impacts our wine industry, but also the fire department as well. So, interesting point to share.
Is there a way to, on that chart, to also add maybe a line for just population?
Absolutely.
Because I think that gives a bit of context, because it's not just, I mean, kind of like a per capita incident.
Great idea. I'd love to have that. Thank you. Jumping on to the training hours, and it's great information to share with council because this here speaks to the dedication of our membership of the fire department, the Soyuz Fire Department. In the first quarter, there were a total of 12 practice nights, which resulted in 852 hours or training hours for our staff. In addition to those training nights, another 409 hours were spent on weekends attending various courses that were delivered to the membership or made available to our membership. And two highlights that have been included are emergency scene management, which is a command and control type course, and responding to the interface course, which was one that we hosted here over 2 days in the last quarter, which teaches members about how to triage homes and such, and how to interact or prepare to combat a fire that's approaching the interface of a community such as ours. Next slide, please. Next area I'd like to talk to implement a change or suggest a change would be the information that's contained here on this page. However, very relevant, very detailed. When I review this page, I really don't know how much value council and our public may get out of understanding that the fourth bullet point, as an example, was on chapter 16. Chapter 16 of what? And those are types of questions that people may ask. I will share with council, of course, that's the textbooks that our members learn from, and that when we maintain competencies, we refer back to. My recommendation on this page here would be to provide council and the community more of a summary. So what topics were covered in emergency scene management, chimney fires, ladder skills, supply and attack hose, things along those lines. More bullet point, as a matter of fact, points for everybody to digest versus looking at a lot of information that just might not make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Go
I'll
ahead.
recommend those changes for sure.
But can I add, I don't think I've ever seen this type of a list before. So does anybody else remember this in this detail? And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. It's something, it's new to me, but I totally agree that a sort of a list of things that you are working on at practice nights or something is probably much better just to have the list. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. If we can jump to the next page, a couple more bullet points on here. Additional meetings. I think this is extremely valuable again for council and the public. Anytime we're busy at the fire department, whether it's officer meetings, occupational health and safety, our CISM team, we have meetings. I want to capture all those and share them with council, of course. So really, I want to expand this area, and that's the point made there. And then with regards to the next area, which is identified as standard operating procedures, I noted in previous reports that there's some very specific areas that are targeted or have been over the years anyways reported on, such as SOGs, standard operating guidelines that we're providing information for. Again, this is an area that I would like to see us more summarize as our priorities. So as an example, change this area out to be department projects and areas of focus, standard operating guidelines, fire smart staffing and budget review. Things along those lines, and that would refer back to the discussion we recently had with council. But again, more of that point form with some detail, of course, information for council, as I just don't see diving deep into the weeds, if you will, with regards to standard operating guidelines. I don't think everyone really needs or wants to know that we created a guideline on how to clean your turnout gear. So just a point that I want to bring forward. For the next few pages and hearing comments that council's made, even by yourself, Madam Mayor, we want to keep on with the pictures, good news information, of course, with regards to the events that the fire department are attending. We're not going to stop doing that, of course. And that would be for both fire prevention and public education, as well as additional fire department activities, which are shown on the last couple pages. Just looking at the fire prevention, if we can back up one, looking at this last page here, which I'll comment on or make a comment to making a change. I do want to maintain this these tables and this information. Fire prevention is one of our key functions within the fire service, as fire prevention does reduce the need for a fire department to respond, keeps our community safe, especially in an aging community. As we move forward, I do want to build on this area, provide council more information. I really like including information around how many kids were reached and things along those lines when we're out into the community. So with council support, I would hope to build on this area for council's information. And just finish. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, like regular inspections, is that normal, about 30, 35 a month?
If that's what it averages out to, so we have 277 properties as per council policy fire-001 that we are required to inspect annually. Our fire prevention officer, or deputy chief of fire prevention, does have them on a schedule. However, the schedule, it varies a little bit. That has to do with how busy we are, the availability of the business and the occupants, and then if a business was visited on January, let's say July 1st of 2025, and there was changes being recommended and being implemented, into that business, it may take them a year, so that may set them back a little bit in their schedule. So those numbers will vary from month to month. However, as you've seen, our fire prevention officer took a really good chunk out of that 277 in the first quarter.
And you got a complaints there. One, is that a public complaint?
Those would be complaints could be a tenant, could be a public complaint with regards to something related to the fire code and building code. As an example, if a tenant of an apartment building, for example, notices some fire code violations, or there's some things that just aren't right, they can call in, make a complaint, and then that triggers our team going out and having a look at it.
Can I just noticed that on one of the pictures, and I was looking at all of the pictures that you've got, and they're great, but one of them you've got faces blocked out. So I appreciate that, because obviously you need to get the approval of parents and so on. But the rest of the pictures are all of staff and so on, so they're perfectly all right. No, I had noticed that. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. And just to finish off the report, an update on our capital expenditures, or our capital report. Currently, we're conducting an environmental scan right now for used aerial apparatus that may be available currently or coming available. More information will follow on that. Computer replacement program is well underway. And as previously discussed, our marine rescue program, we're still waiting on the donation of the watercraft from the RCMP. We have no timeline, but I'm not expecting anything anytime soon. That's my interpretation of what we were told. So the program is currently sitting on hold right now, and just waiting that approval. Fire department activities. Of course, we had the members attended the hockey open night in January. We had our awards night. I've listed the members there that received the various awards through the fire department. And of course, March was International Women's Day in the fire service, and we've recognized our staff. And finally, on the last page, Lieutenant Diane Butt, who is also our new Fire Smart coordinator, was promoted to lieutenant in the first quarter of the year as well. Concludes the report.
Thank you very much. And it's always, all of these reports are very enjoyable, and I appreciate them. So thank you. No other questions? Okay, we will go on to the Operational Services Department. Mr. Madsen.
Thank you, Mayor. Much like everyone else, I've kind of gone through this with the lens of, there's a lot of information that I'm sure we have collected over the years that would be better represented if we actually presented the trends over the years, much like Chief Cook's one graph over the last 20 years for cycles there. So so I think there's a lot of information there that we could display differently. Some of it could be in a chart form, some of it could be in a pie graph form, et cetera, just to be more meaningful. It would mean more to the public and council. A lot of the information is just presented in a 2-year cycle, which doesn't really speak to a lot of trends when you're talking about staffing shortages, or you're talking about other challenges that we have year to year, or climate change and whatnot. So, but as we have a lot of services, I'll just kind of go through it section by section, starting with water and then just kind of working through, and we'll pause at each one.
Can I just stop? I appreciate the fact that on the second page there that you've put Operational Services Department has 2 distinct sub-departments, and I haven't seen that before. Of course, you sort of know that, but I appreciate the fact that you've highlighted the things that go on with each department. So thank you.
Yeah. So I'll start with water. So just kind of working through this section here, and then I'll add a little bit at the end, but with the water, a number of turn on, turn off services, you can see a slight decrease. Total volume of domestic water produced, an increase over the last, or sorry, a decrease over the last year. But that would be better presented sort of per capita over time, so that if we're actually measuring conservation efforts in the community versus population, as opposed to just how much water we're producing. And how much we're producing could mean a number of things: development activities, construction activities, leaks, et cetera. It doesn't say anything on its own, but having that over time, we can see if there's an anomaly or just a trend over time. So the next one there, you can see this year we've had one service repair or water main repair. My first comment on that is those are two separate things. A service repairs from the main to the house happen all the time. But a water main repair, especially when you have an increase of water main breaks in a specific area, might indicate a problem with the infrastructure in that area, or something that we need to investigate further. So kind of breaking that information out, and again, that might be better presented in a table format or something like that, right? So we can kind of see what the history is, and those things also take away from our capacity as well. And similarly, number of hydrants serviced. In this case, we have a contractor doing our servicing. They started, I believe, in March, and I would say that this year we've gotten a little bit more organized in the last couple of years, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to see that. And that's where we're starting our preventative maintenance a little bit sooner, and also some staffing challenges last year as well. So as we kind of get these things normalized, it would be good to see over time how that number of hydrant service compares to the total number of hydrants that we actually have in town, not just the number, because it doesn't mean a whole lot on its own. And then while staying with water, one thing that I was going to add is now that we've had some time with water meters, we can start actually presenting more information, particularly around conservation and usage when it comes to the water meter data. So that's something that we can work in over the next 6 months. But
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess through the fire hydrants, how many do we have in the town?
228, but I don't have a lot of confidence right at the moment that we haven't added one or two over the last year.
No, that's fine, but I see you've done about just under 30 in the quarter. So are you going to try to get through all of them in 1 year, or is it a 2-year process?
So right now, over the last, I think there was my understanding in the past, there was a bit of a gap where we didn't do a lot of hydrant maintenance. So we had hired a contractor to get caught up on things, and it's on a 3-year cycle right now. The ultimate goal would to kind of get that in-house and have our own operators doing it consistently. I believe it's right now on the 3-year cycle would be inspection 1 year, painting, like a third of them inspected, a third of them painted, a third of them actually maintained or tore down as needed. So I would say the target per year is about 80 per year to kind of do that. But again, number of hydrant service doesn't mean, are those ones broken? Is that one just a general preventative maintenance? Is it, so what story is it actually telling? So sorry, those are just my comments as I'm looking at it as well, right? So this is the first chance in the last year I've actually had an opportunity to sit down and ask myself, what does this mean? So moving on to, unless there's any more questions on water, I'll move on to sewer. Okay, so similarly, for sanitary sewer, wastewater system, so number of submersible pumps maintained and wet wells cleaned. Again, those are two different things. We had some staffing issues over the last year, and particularly in utilities. But when it comes to number of submersible pumps maintained, how many do we have? Is it due to a failure? Is it just preventative maintenance, et cetera? So again, this is something that I think would be better even presented in a table format as opposed to just a number that doesn't say anything to anyone. Sanitary sewer pumped to the lagoons, again, that would make more sense over time in a per capita format. But you can see there's a decrease in 2026 from last year, and that could be due to climate, that could be due to any number of visitors, et cetera, right? So, and then something that's been ongoing in the last 6 to 8 months is with the next one, their volume of effluent irrigation water used. So that would be the irrigation after it's gone through the treatment process that the golf course sprays out onto the the fairways and the golf course itself. I'd like to be able to present this better in coordination with the golf course because they've got some data, we've got some data, and just to make it more wholesome to the public. And lastly, catch basins cleaned. In the first quarter, that doesn't really represent anything because we don't do any catch basin cleaning in the wintertime. So we just hope they don't flood.
Councillor Chung has a question.
Thank you. Now that we're kind of near the end of the two-bar graphs, two-bar graphs are kind of a pet peeve of mine because it just compares two data points when you could just, again, as you said, you can just use a chart, right? So in the future, if we could do maybe like a comparison of each quarter over like 2 or 3 years, or else we're just wasting a lot of surface area for the annual report. And again, overlay either population as a line or parcel number as a line, because that gives us more context. And then with the bars, if there is room to actually add the number, because it's hard to say like, okay, it's between, like for volume of domestic water, it's between 200,000 and 100,000, but kind of past half. I'm not quite sure. So having like the raw number in it would give a bit more resolution. Yeah, I think that's my only feedback, if that makes sense.
Yep. So just kind of, I guess, rounding out the on the irrigation, the agricultural water produced, and just I think that first quarter, that's just the quarter one system startup, because as we know, we don't actually turn on the services till April, which would be in quarter two. So I would suspect in 2025, and because that's when I started with the town, we did have a lot of leaks right out of the gates in 2025 when we started up the system. This year, there has been less to the best of my knowledge, but that would likely be the startup where we're just charging the system generally. But again, doing that to your point, Councillor Chung, per hectare of agricultural land, et cetera, so that it is more meaningful. But was there any anomalies in the climate that year that maybe there's more or less water used? So, so moving on from there to roads. Again, similarly, I think this data would be better presented in a chart format. So kilometers of roads swept. That inherently, I know they go throughout the year, they go over the same road multiple times to make sure the town is clean. Just as an example, and or if something is spilled on the road, they might go out and do a spot cleaning in that area or something like that. Pothole repairs can change from year to year depending on many things, rain, heat, etc. That just, or even traffic as the roads get used throughout the years. So, and then signs replaced. What does that information mean? I know we've started a lot of preventative maintenance, which you can see this year, because there's a lot of faded signs in town, and I've asked them, let's start switching out some signs, especially the ones that face south. But it'd be nice to know what's the total number of signs we actually have. Maybe not broken down by sign type, because that would be a very exhaustive chart, but just something so that we know. It gives a sense of what the level of effort and the capacity is that we need to maintain the infrastructure. Next page, to quote Director Davis, a lot of words. This one just provides an overview of what we do for maintenance in the parks and green spaces, cemetery, airport, and the facilities. Is there anything specific that's meaningful to council in this area that we could start collecting data? Even if we don't have it right now, we might be able to start. I can look into seeing how much water we're actually putting out on the parks and see if that's something we can start tracking.
I think that's a good idea because there are several other areas up and down the valley that are looking at that, because we're all trying to make water work. Conservation and several at the RDOS said, you know, we're concerned about how much is put out with on the town properties and on the roads. Thank you.
And I think it would be also important to differentiate between like if it's treated effluent water used or not.
Okay.
Because then that could skew some of the numbers a bit as well.
Yeah. And there's some parks like Gyro that we pump straight from the lake with as well. So okay.
Councillor Bennett had a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question with the school board, like with the schools, they have huge school fields and stuff. And do we regulate of how much of the water that we see going, of how much they're using?
I'd have to confirm that. I believe that that area is included with what comes out of the effluent from the waste, the lagoons, yeah. So I don't know, we don't regulate it per se because it's not coming from the town water system.
Oh, okay.
Are you talking, now you're talking about for irrigation purposes, not for their domestic
Yeah.
usage?
Yeah. Thank you.
The high school uses the,
Right.
yeah,
Sorry.
but the elementary school has their own well, so we don't have anything to do with that one, is what I understand. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay. So landfill stats, and we need to add a little bit of verbiage here. And we could add some more information around collection stats, working with our contractor on that too. But my first comment on this one for an improvement we could make is breaking this into different graphs, because trying to stack everything against one another, you can see on the tonnage of compost sold doesn't really tie to the amount that's being produced by the town, but also doesn't really indicate a whole lot there. So I think we could represent this information a little bit better, and again over time, so we can see if there's a decrease in general municipal solid waste versus an increase in recycling and or yard waste to divert it from the landfill. The next graph for fleet, it just kind of, we've got one mechanic. He maintains all of our equipment as well as the fire department's equipment. I'm not really sure we can report something like number of breakdowns, etc., and kind of go from there. The bottom graph there, human resources. So we've reported, I think, historically number of courses taken, but again, that could change year to year based on staffing levels and or budgetary levels, et cetera, or whatever's going on in our environment. Do we need to increase more on occupational health and safety training, et cetera? So I think having a little bit more context about why there's an increase or decrease in training would be good.
Right. Question. I guess back to all your equipment, would it be valuable to know what years they are so we can look at this before budget time?
Yeah, that we can do that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of courses taken, if we can break that down to subtype of courses, like whether it's more like water operator or utility, sewer, etc. I think that would give a lot of context as well. And I think a chart, please.
Okay. So general operations, the next page there. So water quality concerns, there's a decrease, but again, over time, it'd be interesting, particularly going back to 2019 to 2021 when we started to chlorinate and what concerns there were, and we could see some information there. But I would actually include this with the water section, not necessarily here, so that all the water information's together. Service requests, and that one is broken out by the different types, as you can see. But again, it would be interesting to see how that looks over time. 2 years or 1 quarter over 2 years doesn't tell a story of, is there something bigger going on within our water system, and what type is it? Is it water, sewer, garbage, those sort of things? And then the admin calls and emails, I think that's something that generally we're working on collectively, is what is this actually telling? Is it just a workload chart? What are we trying to portray?
And could I add, sometimes people have a concern, they phone town hall first.
Yeah.
And how many of those calls are then put to, community services? Or, I mean, we sort of need to know there too. We know the list of how many have come into town hall, but where do they then get sent? And that there could be duplications there. Thanks.
The next page here, so I updated this one finally after the last year, and I represented it a little bit differently to be, I hope, a little bit more concise than the way it was presented before, but I know collectively we need to kind of make it all align a little bit across different departments for our capital projects. And But I updated this because the list that was in there before was from 2024. So this has been updated to 2026. And the one I haven't included, obviously, there is the last column, which is the actuals that we can report out on. But if there's any other feedback, I think generally, or something we can work on as staff for capital.
Can we color code it with like red, green, and yellow?
For
And-
the status, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And my concern is that we have a lot of these things that are in progress. And so I think we need a little bit more information on those. Might they be finished this year? Are they going to take a couple of years? Or is there a reason for, because there's just the one there, the fencing that's been completed. So I'm hoping we're going to see some of the rest of them completed as well by the end of
Ye-
the year. But I know it takes time for sure.
Yeah, and I would say that because this is from the 2026 list and this is still the start of the year, we are working through
Sure.
some of them. And
Thank you.
so maybe like an anticipated completion date, like. Yeah. And then the last page there, I did include a section at the bottom, projects of note, which have been more or will be more publicly or out in the public or affect the public. So and I kind of changed what we had in the past there, but just some brief updates on each one of those as well.
Can I say thank you for the force main odor reduction? I know we've had a lot of concerns about that, a lot of phone calls about it, because it still seems to happen apparently at 9 o'clock at night. I don't know how that triggers it, but and I do appreciate the update that Communications has put out as an e-news update, and I think that's helpful. And I think that's where we have Lauren, and anything else that we can work on. I think putting it out and letting people know that we're thinking about it makes it quite a difference. And I see that 89th Street reconstruction is on there. So I know that we're doing one part of it right now.
Mhm.
At the bottom, across from the school fields, there was a piece of property, had a big sign on it for sale. Is that being used by operations to store equipment for the next section? I just see that the gate is open now and there's some things in there. I just wasn't sure what it was.
To the best of my knowledge, so it's not operations directly. We haven't done anything with it, but the contractor may have negotiated something with the private property owner.
With regards to projects of note, I do appreciate the intent. Can we add just like a little bit more detail as to like what has been done, what stage we're at, and what to expect in the future?
We can do that. We are also planning to do that with the update on the project pages on the website as well.
Okay. And I see the boat launch repairs. That's another one that we've had quite a few articles in the paper and everywhere else on that. I'm assuming that we kind of have to wait for the province to sort of allow us to do the next step. And if the water is too high, which it seems to be, it's at 88% at normal right now, which is a good thing. I'm assuming we're going to have to wait to do that until the water goes down a bit. Or can it be done at this level?
I believe it can be done, but we'll wait for the direction from the province and I'll work with the contractor to see what can be done.
Thank you. Go ahead.
While we are here, can you give a little update on the odor reduction aspect?
Sure. So as I mentioned on the e-news there, earlier this year, we started to work with a company called Biomax, which we've worked with in I think 2 or 3 years ago, and to essentially start adding chemical additives to the sewage going through the force mains, and as it finds its way to the lagoons, that will keep the sewage alive, for lack of better words, and reduce the smell over time. It's when the bacteria in the sewage essentially dies, that's when the smell starts. So you need to keep adding oxygen to keep the good bacteria alive. But that process has been ongoing now for a couple months. To establish a baseline, we did monitor the H2S or hydrogen sulfide levels up front. Then we started adding it in, and now we're just monitoring that to see how it's actually impacting the sewage as it gets to lagoons. So we should hopefully see some improvements here. I'm hoping very soon if it hasn't started already. But lagoons are a living sort of plant, if you will, living facility, and sometimes due to seasonal changes or behaviors of what's going into being flushed down into the sewage system, we can't fix everything all the time.
Okay, did you have some? Go ahead, sure.
Through to Director Colson. With the new website coming on board, is it possible to post our quarterly, soon to be biannual department reports kind of outside of our council packages? There's a lot of really great information there. I just would like to make it really accessible to the residents. They're looking for information, especially seeing when we do those updates, especially now that we're moving away from the quarterly.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else that anybody has to say or comment on? No? You again?
I was going to terminate, but
Oh, hang on, we're not at that page yet. Okay, I just want to thank all of the directors for providing these reports. Really appreciate it. And you now know that you don't have to do one for another 6 months. So there you go, not 3 months. So thank you very much to all of you. And I assume we've had it terminated. 1, 2, all in favor. Thank you very much, everybody.